Mayor Hewitt, what do you think about what's going on here?
Six Nations has been asking for the federal government to engage. There is a governance issue on Six Nations that continues to be a roadblock to that engagement. Who do you speak to? Six Nations has an elected band council that many do not subscribe to. They have a confederacy and hereditary system that many do or don't subscribe to. And they don't have the ability to determine who should best represent them in this negotiation for a amount of money that the federal government should be able to put in a account, if you will, of trust that the members of Six Nations can ultimately see the benefit of.
So we just spoke to Skylar a couple minutes ago, and he has said that Six Nations just wants peace, that they just want the land the way it is. They just want it to be peaceful. How do you respond to that, what he says is his desire and the desire of his people?
Well, I think it's clear to see that what's happening out here on the streets has not been peaceful. You know, despite whether we agree or disagree, we all have rules that we all subscribe to in society. That's what that's what keeps society in check and control. A judge heard the claims made by Foxgate, who has purchased land through the provincial title system that specifically says that that land is their land. Now, if there is a underlying claim in monies that exist, well, that's not between Foxgate and the province and or the people of Caledonia. That's between Six Nations and the federal government. So if peace is truly what you're after, then destroying the infrastructure that surrounds this community is not achieving that. It's angering the people. And if peace is truly what they're after, then they need to look within themselves to find who can best represent them so that they can sit at a table with the federal government and achieve that goal.
And I think that's an interesting point that you make, Mayor Hewitt, about the judicial system of our country. I think any Indigenous group would say you're talking nation to nation. And so how do you have a constructive conversation between Canada and what is a separate reserve on this land? How do you have that when they have a very different system and a different way of conflict resolution?
Again, I don't dispute that. But if Six Nations wants to engage in a nation-to-nation conversation, who's that with? Is it with the band council? Is it with confederacy chiefs? Is it with Men's Fire? Is it with the clan mothers? Like, who ultimately is going to represent Six Nations when there actually is a table to sit down at? So to sit here and cry for the federal government to come down here and pay attention at the expense of all these people locally who are experiencing this and say, we want to hear from you. Well, that's great. But who is it that you want them to speak to? Who is it that you can trust that will best represent you? Because in the past, decisions have been made, and unfortunately, members of Six Nations have not been given the opportunities that were afforded to them through negotiations in the past. So trust is a big issue, not just with those outside of Six Nations, but those within.